Argentina, located in the heart of South America, is famous for its tango, football, and rich cultural heritage. However, beyond the popular stories of the country, there is a significant yet often neglected tale: the story of Afro-Argentines. Have you ever wondered why there are no black players in the Argentine football national team? Have you been curious about why there are no Afro-Argentine politicians on TV? They once constituted a significant portion of the nation's population, but their numbers and stories have dwindled. What led to this decline, and how do their contributions resonate in contemporary Argentina? Join us as we explore the Afro-Argentine community throughout history, uncovering their challenges, accomplishments, and lasting impact on the nation. Afro-Argentines are individuals of African descent who were brought to Argentina as slaves during the 18th century. They were an essential part of the Argentinian population, and their contributions to the country's social, cultural, and economic development cannot be overstated. Despite their significant numbers, Afro-Argentines faced many challenges and struggles, including racial discrimination, which led to a steady decrease in their population over time. According to a census by the Spanish Council in 1778, Afro-Argentines comprised approximately 37% of the Argentine population, highlighting their importance in shaping the country's history. Argentina is known for having the widest land area in South America. However, the Afro-Argentine population has significantly decreased to only about 15% over the years. This decline can be attributed to slavery, discrimination, and a lack of government support. Afro-Argentines have faced numerous challenges in their efforts to integrate into Argentine society. Despite their contributions to the country, they have been marginalized and underrepresented in various sectors such as sports, journalism, politics, and many more. This is due to the limited number of Afro-Argentines, making it difficult for them to gain visibility in these fields. In this video, we will provide a comprehensive overview of the history of Afro-Argentines, the factors that led to their reduction, and their current situation in the country. We will also highlight the efforts to promote their inclusion and celebrate their cultural heritage. Chapter 1. Origins of Afro-Argentines. People of African descent were kidnapped and taken as slaves away from their African homeland throughout the 16th century. They were chained up from the wrists and feet all through. There were people from the Cape Verde Islands among them. Still, most came from Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Republic of the Congo, and belonged to ethnic groups that spoke Bantu languages. These Bantu languages are spoken in the regions that make up Angola. In the 1600s, just a handful of Europeans made their homes in Latin America. Slave ships brought over 12 million people from Africa to Latin America for centuries. On the other hand, anywhere between 10 and 15% of these slaves died as they were being transported across the Atlantic. In addition to this, a great number of people perished in the first phases of their captivity. At the same time, they were being taken across the interior of Africa. According to the archives, around 40 of every 100 slaves who made it to the New World perished on the trek there. The majority of these African people were transported to the city of Buenos Aires, which is the capital of Argentina. At that time, the slave trade accounted for most of the city's economic activity. These individuals who were held captive were forced to labor in various fields, including agriculture, cattle, household tasks, and urban crafts, among other occupations. In the city, many slaves were employed in producing handicrafts. Nevertheless, their owners received all of the money earned from selling their wares. In the Buenos Aires areas of San Telmo and Montserrat, a sizable community of people were held as slaves. However, to maximize revenues, many of these slaves were eventually sent into the interior provinces. Because of the profitable nature of this trade, the slave business became a dominating industry in Buenos Aires, accounting for around 70% of all trading operations. Due to the lucrative nature of this trade, the slave business became a prominent industry in Buenos Aires. At some point in time, Argentina passed legislation that legally sanctioned the trafficking in slaves. Chapter 2. The decline of the Afro-Argentine population. A census taken in 1778 by Juan José Salcedo of Vortes found that regions with a plentiful supply of agricultural goods had a sizable black population, accounting for around half of the entire population. This number increased because slaves continued to be brought into the country. Even though the slave trade was abolished in 1813, slavery continued to exist up until it was abolished in 1853. In Argentina, the Afro-Argentine culture has a long and illustrious history that can be traced back to the Atlantic slave trade. Even though the percentage of Afro-Argentines in the country's population is considered to be between 1% and 2%, the cultural influence that they have had on Argentina's history and development has been significant and essential. This culture is an essential component of Argentina's varied historical background. Buenos Aires was a center for the slave trade in the past. Still, now it is known worldwide for its style, architecture, and general attractiveness. Tragically, from colonial rule until the 19th century, Afro-Argentines were treated more like property than persons, which resulted in the denial of essential civil liberties for this population. Chapter 3. Socio-economic challenges and contributions. Afro-Argentines were subjected to segregation and prejudice even after slavery was abolished in the country in 1853. They were often excluded from public institutions like schools, churches, and public gathering places and forced to live in separate areas. Their options were restricted, and many were forced to choose low-paying occupations and contend with racism in the workplace and in the advancement process. Because they didn't have voting rights until 1912, political activity among them was almost non-existent. Many people were forced to sell their land and properties without receiving any compensation as a result of discriminatory legislation and practices. Before the passage of the Abolition Statute in 1853, people of African descent could not enroll in universities. Because of racial stereotypes, more time and resources were invested in the education of white children than black children. For example, in 1857, just 2 black children were accepted into the 14 schools in the city of Buenos Aires, even though 15% of the student population that year was comprised of students of color. In addition, Afro-Argentines did not have access to medical treatment, which made their already precarious economic and monetary circumstances much worse. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Afro-Argentine population saw a steady drop, which may be linked to several different circumstances. The abolition of the slave trade in 1813 was a significant contributing element. Because there was no legitimate way to bring in more African slaves, the increase of the Afro-Argentine population was naturally restricted. Chapter 4. The resurgence of Afro-Argentine identity. Their participation in Argentina's battle for independence led to a further decrease in the country's Afro-Argentine population, which was already small. In 1810, Argentina began its long and ultimately successful fight for independence, which was finally won in 1816. Black males, many of whom were slaves, were forced to fight on the front lines after being recruited to do so. As a consequence, there was a substantial death toll among black men. Their involvement was essential in gaining Argentina's independence, yet it was also abused to decrease the number of people of African descent in the country. The courageous actions that Maria Remedios del Valle took with her family in several conflicts won her the title of Mother of the Nation during this period. Other important personalities from this era include: she suffered the heartbreaking loss of her husband and son during the war, and she passed away in 1847, living in abject poverty. Jacinto Ventura de Molina, an additional notable character, was born into slavery in Buenos Aires in 1773. He was a participant in the Wars of Independence, and in 1813, he was wounded at the Battle of Salta. He passed away not long after that. Late in the 19th century and early in the 20th century, the government of Argentina aggressively supported European immigration, which led to a rise in the percentage of the white population. The goal of creating a whiter country was eventually accomplished as more Europeans made Argentina their home. Marriages between people of European descent and people of Afro-Argentine descent led to the creation of a mixed-race population. This further contributed to the dilution of the black skin tone. This inflow of European immigrants raised the competitiveness in the labour market, which put formerly enslaved people and their descendants in a difficult economic position owing to the increased level of competition and racial prejudice and discrimination. The Afro-Argentine community was dealt yet another blow when it was hit with several health issues. Afro-Argentines suffered a disproportionately high death toll during the cholera and yellow fever outbreaks in 1864 and 1871 respectively. They were more likely to get these illnesses because many lived in impoverished settings, which restricted their access to critical services such as clean water and sanitation. Afro-Argentines were subjected to ongoing discrimination and social isolation, which put their health and well-being at risk during times of public emergency. Without access to modern medical care, many people turned to alternative treatments, such as home cures and traditional medicines. Regrettably, these treatments were often ineffective against serious conditions, leading to unacceptable deaths. Within the Afro-Argentine population, the number of black women outnumbers the number of black males as a result of the combination of war deaths and illness outbreaks, which led to the skewed gender balance. This demographic imbalance led to an increase in marriages between people of different races. The small number of black males still alive presented black women with a difficult choice. They could marry an Argentinian guy or compete for the few remaining black men from Africa. Many people went with the first option, not just because it was the sole viable option, but also because doing so helped them negotiate societal biases and improve their social position. By marrying into the popular society at the time, these women wanted to better their lives and the lives of their children and gain more rights. Chapter 5. Modern-day Afro-Argentines and their legacy. The offspring of these unions were sometimes referred to as non-whites, which is a phrase that reflects the unwillingness of the Argentine authorities to accept the country's multiracial population. If one were to analyze Argentina's population in the present day, it would be clear that the non-whites group has surpassed both the solely black and white populations. The Afro-Argentine community underwent a process of whitening due to the prevalence of interracial marriages. Because of this mixing, not only did their physical qualities become less distinct, but so did their cultural awareness. The harsh truth is that around 90% of today's population of Argentina considers themselves to be white. There is a communal amnesia concerning the nation's racial background, as shown by the fact that many people are ignorant of their Afro-Argentine lineage. Because of this ignorance and the other issues described above, the Afro-Argentine group has been pushed outside society and is on the verge of extinction. At the present day, they account for around 1% or less of the overall population. Regrettably, their tremendous historical and cultural contributions to Argentina remain unappreciated and unacknowledged by the country's government and public. It is troubling that there is so pervasive ignorance on the history of black people in Argentina. Their narratives and experiences went lost in the annals of history as the Afro-Argentine population shrank over the years. On the other hand, Afro-Argentines have been working hard to recover their histories and tell their stories ever since the growth of black communities in the 20th century. The revitalization of interest in Argentina's African heritage has led to the formation of several black groups, such as Grupo Cultural Afro, SOS Racismo, and most notably, the Africa Viva group, which was created by Paca La Madrid. These organizations are among the most prominent. Argentina's African cultural environment has been further enhanced due to the impact of Afro-Uruguayan and Afro-Brazilian immigrants' contributions. The Forum of African Descent and Africans in Argentina was established on October 9, 2006 to promote social and artistic diversity and combat the erasing of the black minority in Argentina. The governmental entity tasked with combating prejudice and racism is known by its Spanish acronym ENADI, National Institute Against Prejudice. 2021 saw the Argentine government's establishment of the Afro-Argentine Community Federal Advisory Council. Comprised of eminent Afro-Argentine activists and academics, the council was given federal advisory status. When the Argentine Senate decided to celebrate Mara Remedios del Valle, an Afro-Argentine lady who fought bravely during Argentina's War of Independence in the 19th century, an important milestone was attained. The day of November 8th was declared as the day to remember Mara Remedios del Valle. This day has been officially recognized as the public day of Afro-Argentines and African culture since 2013 it was first established. This is an opportunity for Argentina to rekindle its connections to its African roots and honor this legacy. However, discussions over Argentina's racial identity continue to this day. There is no clear answer to whether or not Argentina is a mostly white country. The heritage of Afro-Argentines who bravely contributed to the independence of the country will forever be ingrained in the memory of Argentines, in spite of the efforts that have been made to remove them from the annals of history. Conclusion. As we get to the end of this film, we want to encourage you to consider the Afro-Argentine community. Should those who have made major contributions in the past and continue to do so maintain key positions in Argentina? Please leave your feedback in the comments section below. If you found this material to be thought-provoking, we would appreciate it if you would give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on alerts so that we can bring you more interesting topics. We are grateful for your participation and look forward to continuing this conversation. I really appreciate it.